I'm at Holy Cross Cemetery in Culver City right now, and and recently I've done like sort of tabloid stories. I've read the files that I've collected over the years that Troy and I have recently unearthed, and one of the files I found was my file on Rita Hayworth. And then I looked a little bit further, and my friend Roger Sinclair, before he died, rest in peace, Roger, took some pictures of Rita Hayworth's funeral when it was held. It was actually held at Good Shepherd Catholic Church in Beverly Hills, but then her casket was brought here for a graveside ceremony. So I figured we'd visit Rita Hayworth. I'll show you the pictures from her cemetery, from her funeral or her graveside service, and I'll read some of her tabloids. So she's actually right over here. Very modest grave, actually, considering what a superstar she was. And here she is. These slate graves don't, they really need constant upkeep. They really need to be treated. They don't weather well. When we're out in the desert by us, they get really, really bad. You can't even read them anymore. But this has been nicked over several times by lawnmowers, I'm sure. But there are a lot of people in this immediate area. There's Bonita Granville is right around here. And then there's Bela Lugosi, of course, and Sharon Tate is over here, and I've taken you there a couple of times. Right over there is Jimmy Durante and Jackie Coogan, and Hun Cleve and the Lennon sisters' father, and there's Jack Haley, Ray Bolger's in here. So anyway, I'll get to the Rita Hayworth stories. There's a little bit of a file here, so let's see what's up. This is November 1989. Candid biography tells the shocking childhood that destroyed Rita Hayworth. Grew up very quickly. Brutal beatings at the hands of her father, but abuse as well. Eduardo did bad things to her in the afternoons. This is a biography that was written about her. Seems like whenever you want to do photographs in a cemetery, it's always really weird shade. Rita Hayworth's bizarre behavior, frightening her friends. Now, she died on May 14th, 1987, of Alzheimer. She had Alzheimer's for quite a long time. So this was probably, since faded film siren Rita Hayworth is frightening her friends and startling strangers by suddenly breaking into wild Latin dances and songs, telling people she's Gilda, a singer she played at the height of her movie fame. The tormented 61-year-old actress literally becomes Gilda, the title role she played in the film set in South America. This is in 1980, so she passed away in 1987. So this explains a little bit probably about what she was going through towards maybe the beginning of her diagnosis. She attended the opening of Rockwell's restaurant in Los Angeles in June, was soon whirling around the stage in her strange Gilda way. People stared at her in amazement, said a guest. She had this faraway look in her eyes as though she was in another time. Now this is 1998. This is something I clipped from a British magazine. Announced that at the age of 64, one-time Rita Hayworth star was to be rediscovered in a forthcoming TV film about her life. She wasn't able to express her views, however, suffering from the advanced stages of Alzheimer's disease. Her mental faculties have been virtually destroyed. What an awful, awful way to go. Just long, drawn out, and you're looking at it every single day. Awful. Rita Hayworth, all I ever wanted to be was myself. She set the screen on fire with the 1946 flick Gilda and the 1953 sizzler Salome, and she never lived down her box office image as a sex siren. This is just basically a 5 husbands. Orson Welles, that's interesting that she married Orson Welles. And I think they had a daughter. They did have a daughter, didn't they? Yeah. She looks more like Orson Welles than Rita Hayworth. So this is her obituary. This is from Janet, my friend Janet, who passed away and left me her files. Died here in New York, it looks like. Thursday night, of Alzheimer's disease. She was 68. She had been under the care of her second daughter, Princess Yasmin Aga Khan, who, through publicizing her mother's illness, has been credited with drawing national and international attention to Alzheimer's disease, an incurable brain disorder of which little is known until a few years ago. According to Princess Yasmin, Hayworth's health has been steadily deteriorating over the years, and she lapsed into a semi-coma in February. It's so interesting to see different pictures of her because you just really don't. It's always that. It's always the Gilda picture. You never see her as someone who's, matured a bit. Here's another great picture of her. The Love Goddess. Lots of obituaries, which all pretty much say the same thing. They were just Associated Press releases. There's her and Orson. That house that Jean Harlow lived in when she died was the house that Rita Hayworth moved into. We got in that house for our first documentary. We're in Beverly Hills right now, and behind me is the home of Jean Harlow, where she lived until she died in 1937. And thankfully, the people that own this house are super, super nice, and they've become friends of mine, and they've invited us in. So in we go. This is the original bar to the house, where no doubt many, many, many thousands of martinis were consumed during the golden age of Hollywood. You could just imagine while Harlow was ill upstairs, William Powell coming down here and just pounding a dozen of them at a time. I know I would have been. But it's cool. This is it. This is the real place. We're in the living room of the house now. I forgot to mention earlier, but Rita Hayworth is also a former resident of this house. When she split with Orson Welles, she moved into this house. And this is the beautiful fireplace. The nice people that live in this house, very nice people, when they did the fireplace over again, they tried to keep these beautiful tiles that were in the base of it, and they couldn't do it. How Orson Welles loved and lost Rita Hayworth. Welles had publicly vowed to make the flame-haired beauty his trophy wife after seeing her sexy photo in Life magazine. At the time of his arrogant vow, movie whiz kid Welles had never met Hayworth and was engaged to Dolores Del Rio. How did Orson Welles? He must have been a very charming man. Glenn Ford's last words, you don't keep Rita Hayworth waiting. I'm ready to go now. You don't keep Rita Hayworth waiting. Those were the touching last words of acting legend Glenn Ford, who died at the age of 90 in his Beverly Hills home. His son Peter, by first wife Eleanor Powell, daughter-in-law Linda, and granddaughter Eleanor were at his side. So Glenn Ford's last words were about Rita Hayworth. This is just a born Margarita Carmen Cancino in New York City on October 17th, 1918. Daughter of flamenco dancer Eduardo Cancino and Ziegfeld Follies chorus girl Volga Hayworth. She was only in her 40s when she began to exhibit early symptoms of Alzheimer's. Her last two marriages were doomed. James Hill and Dick Haynes. Tragic last years. Life of the woman who epitomized celluloid glamour for 2 decades have been ebbing away tragically for several years in the seclusion of her daughter's Manhattan apartment. So, the lady from the sexiest dancing partner had been placed under court under legal guardianship of her daughter, and this was. Oh, this is wild. 1976, when Gordon Miles found a love letter from another man to the wife he worshipped, he beat her to death and burned. Oh, I'm like, okay, here it is. Jesus. I'm like, what did that have to do with it? Okay, Hollywood actress Rita Hayworth made a dramatic entry yesterday when she arrived at Heathrow. She was unwell and was apparently unwilling to leave the TWA jet. The airliner was due to go on to Paris, and other passengers were waiting to board. After a half-hour delay, a woman appeared wearing a dark hat, glasses, and shielding her face from photographers. It wasn't Miss Hayworth, but she followed a few yards behind. She was half lifted down the aircraft steps. Her hair was disheveled and her clothes were rumpled. A fellow passenger said later she looked very ill. A number of Miss Hayworth's parties said she doesn't like flying and was very tired. An airline car eventually drove her to a VIP suite. That was in 1976. The agony. Okay, this is an obituary. My men went to bed with a sex symbol and woke up with me. That had to be odd. That had to be terrible to have that. I mean, you want that. Of course, you want that image. A lot of people would love that image, but it's hard to bring people down to reality. Rita Hayworth. Princess Yasmin finally recalls her glamorous mother. Prince Ali Khan. After Hayworth's LA funeral mass, attended by more 400, her eldest daughter Rebecca placed a flower on the casket while Yasmin in the veil looked on. So, what I'm going to do... Oh, this is actually good timing because the lawnmower just came up. I am going to match up photographs of what Roger took of Rita Hayworth's graveside service here, and I'll add them now. But thanks for this. We're going to stop right now because the lawnmower is literally starting about 20 feet away from us. So perfect timing. So Troy and I were looking at these pictures that Roger took of Rita Hayworth's funeral, and it took us a long time to figure out where she was. But it actually was, her casket is on, it looks like a liner on top of, the casket resting on top of the liner right in front of her grave, on her grave. So that's one of the pictures. And another picture, because there's also a picture of Roger or Roger's friend with his hand on Rita Hayworth's casket, and you could see that statue in the distance. The statue of Saint Bernadette. And then there's one other picture of just Rita's casket on a vault or on a liner, and I'm going to. It looks like it's right on the side of the road here, which means they would have had to pick the whole thing up. I wasn't here. I wish Roger was here, and he could explain it. But the one picture looks like the vault with the casket on top of it's here because there's limousines parked over here. But the other picture, which we were definitely able to identify, was actually her casket on the top of her grave. That took a long time to do, too. So there were rows of chairs set up over here, and I think a lot of overflow people in the on the other area. There's a whole sort of another area down here that people could be standing on. So we figured it out. Rest in peace, lovely Rita.